So, as we conclude our series surrounding what it means to come to the table, it's really appropriate that we end with this story. Abraham and Sarah spent so much of their lives being promised that their descendants would outnumber the stars. Abraham and Sarah spent so much of their lives believing and trusting in God, believing and trusting in the promises that God was preparing to make to them and for them. They traveled very far through the desert. They left family members. They left everything they knew to follow God on this whim, this faith of being able to say, we trust that God will care for us. And then the years wore on. And Sarah was still without a child. And Abraham's descendants most definitely did not outnumber the stars, nor was there any semblance that there might be something. And as everybody who's ever chased a dream or waited a really long time for something they knew they really, really, really wanted, or waited on God for way longer than you ever expect, at some point you just give up. And you say, that is great, and I have faith that God will take care of us, but you know, God's plans are not my plans, and maybe that is for a different lifetime. Maybe that is for a different version of myself, but it is not going to happen here. And so I imagine, I believe that Sarah at some point when all of the biology of childbearing no longer happens for her, she says, I'm probably done. This isn't ever going to happen for me. And resigns herself to believing that she will never be a mother. And so when Abraham greets these visitors, these three strangers, or as they're later revealed to be these three angels, I imagine that Sarah is working her regular life, doing her regular things, and her husband comes running in and says, and now, very quickly, you must prepare a meal. And I imagine that there's a little bit of grumbling and a little bit of frustration of, why in the world am I going to do this? Could we have gotten some advanced warning? Why do I have to use choice flour? I have 1,000 other things that need to get done today. Why am I having to pause my expectations of today to meet these strangers' needs? And having read enough about Sarah, I imagine that she rolled her eyes at Abraham and wondered to herself what in the world he was up to. And then Abraham sits down with these gentlemen, and they tell him, in due season I will return, and Sarah will be with child. And I imagine that Sarah heard that and went, you have got to be kidding me. Don't you know that that is a dream and a hope and a goal I gave up a lifetime and a half ago? Have you not seen how old my husband is or how old I am? Don't you know that this is just not in our plans anymore? I imagine that a part of her also said, this is the same dream I dreamed for decades. How dare you bring this up again? Right? Who are you, strangers who showed up out of absolutely nowhere, who made me break my routine, who made me have to prepare food, to mess with my status quo? How dare you then dangle this thing in front of me, this thing that I gave up on a long time ago, this dream and this hope and this desire that I laid to rest? How dare you rekindle that hope in me again? And she laughs. Part of her finds it funny. Part of her finds it not so funny. I imagine that she had this inner turmoil, this inner dialogue of, what do these men know? I gave up on that so long ago. And then it's revealed that these three strangers are not just random travelers. They are actually angels who have come to bear the word of God, not just to Abraham, but to Sarah. And then something shifts in Sarah, and then she becomes afraid because now she's just laughed at God. Now she's just laughed and said seriously to God, whom she has trusted and followed in for decades upon decades, for whom she has left everything and given up everything to follow. And God concludes with, "Oh yes, you did. Oh yes, you did. You laughed because you had given up. You laughed because you didn't think it was possible. You laughed because in that moment, it was the only thing you could do to keep from crying. You did it because there is still, as much as you have given up on this hope and this dream, there is still pain inside of you. And you still want this more than anything." There are so many situations in our lives in which we laugh at the people around us. And we laugh for multitudes of reasons. Maybe you laugh because your dinner table, like ours, turns into comedy hour. And you laugh because there is such joy in watching a 4-year-old's face light up. Or perhaps you laugh because you hear someone say something utterly impossible. You laugh because you know that that's a joke. There is absolutely no way that those things are ever going to come to fruition. Or perhaps more everyday, more what we experience probably much more often than random angels appearing at our doorsteps and being told that we're going to have children when we are well past the childbearing years. Perhaps you, like me, sometimes get caught up in the everyday of life, the meal planning and the cooking and the working and the caring for children and the trying to care for yourself, trying to figure out what it means to live in the middle of a global pandemic, worried about finances, worried about healthcare, worried about what the state of the country will be, worried about what the state of the world will be, worried to turn on the news, frustrated by the stuff going on in your everyday, wondering what could possibly come next. Or perhaps you, like I often get, are so tired of cleaning your kitchen. I am so tired of cleaning my kitchen. There are days where I stare at it and I go, didn't I just clean you like 30 minutes ago? Right? Anybody else have that problem? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I may use a lot of dishes when I cook. Right? That you get so focused on the mundane and the everyday and the frustration that everything feels like it's just too much. And so you focus narrowly in on the things that are going wrong and the things that you have to take care of, and your emotional and mental exhaustion and your physical exhaustion and your tiredness of having to do the same things over and over and over again. That perhaps, which has happened with Matt and I several times in our marriage, it's not even 6 months yet, Matt is a social butterfly. Matt loves to have people around. He loves to have people over for dinner. He loves to tell them really bad jokes. For him, that is a really important part of the way that he experiences the world and spreads joy as well as gets joy. And I like to have people over, but I like to do it in my own time and in my own way of doing things. And I have found myself multiple times now getting ready to, we have a potty emergency, getting ready to prepare for more of socially distanced Matt's friends coming over. And I'm in the kitchen and I'm making food and I'm planning a menu and I'm cleaning the kitchen and I'm cleaning the house and I'm getting everything all together, and I can get very quickly wrapped up in the frustration of the things that I have to do. And my frustration of Matt not being able to read my mind. Why can't you just, why didn't you know that I wanted to start the burgers at 4:30? Right? And I get so wrapped up in the stuff that I forget that when I come and I sit at the table, everything else melts away. Because I get caught up in the conversation and the laughter and the joy of simply being with other people. There are days too when I'm just frustrated by the mundane experience of living and working and juggling all of the things that happen in the world. And I put dinner on the table and I am frustrated and I am tired, and knowing me, I probably have a meeting anywhere in between an hour and 30 minutes from when dinner gets on the table, and I am frustrated. And the act of sitting at the table together lifts this frustrated part of myself, and we are laughing and enjoying moments of life together. And the laughter that we find at the table doesn't take away the fact that we're living in the middle of a global pandemic. And the laughter at the table and the joy and the fellowship that we find by sitting together doesn't take away the fact that people die every single day. Doesn't take away the fact that so much of our country is divided and in upheaval, and justice is not served when justice should be served. It doesn't take away the fact that there is still real pain and anger and frustration. But that laughter around the table reminds us that there is a lot more to life than the here and the now. That even when justice or promises are long, as Martin Luther King Jr. says, the arc of justice is long. The arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Right? Sometimes the arc of our faith journey is long, but it bends towards the promises of God being fulfilled. And that moment in which we gather around the table, whether it's literally and physically at the table, or we are on Zoom, or we are in the grocery store, or standing on the street corner, when we have moments of elation and laughter, we are reminded that there is so much more to what it is that this world is supposed to be than the everyday frustrations, and we get to touch God. The God who delighted in wisdom during creation. The God who delights in having us live lives that are full and good. The God who desires for us to enjoy what God has created. The laughter around the table enables us to touch God in a way we have not been able to. God breaks through our frustrations and our stuff and our brokenness and says there is more. Yes, the world is a dumpster fire, but God still is God. Yes, We are living in the middle of a global pandemic, and there is no seeming end in sight. And there's enough pain and brokenness going around in this world that it can feel so heavy on our chests. But when we can laugh and delight and enjoy one another, we begin to touch God, see God anew, and our whole lives are transformed. So this week, focus on your laughter. Focus on moments that take you out of the trance of your everyday lives and allow you to touch God in a new and profound way, today and every day. Amen.